This is the story of Norman Best and Margaret Casey, my parents. My mother was born in a bustling Welsh mining town in 1918, during those final dark days of the First World War and at the height of the devastating Spanish flu epidemic that swept much of Europe. Tragically, her mother succumbed to the flu days after my mum was born, leaving her father with a newborn and 2 older siblings to raise alone. It was an overwhelming situation for him, so my mother was soon taken in and raised instead by her maternal grandmother. My father was born in a port city in the south of England, the eldest of 4 children. His father worked as an engineer at the shipyards, and my dad inherited the same meticulous attention to detail and interest in all things mechanical. He was always inquisitive and had a passion for adventure, so in 1936, at the age of only 16, he joined the Air Force. Flying was a passion that never left him. He served in the RAF throughout the war until the late 1940s, including 5 years on attachment to the Fleet Air Arm of the Royal Navy. He served as NCO aircrew and technical staff stationed in the Mediterranean, Africa, and the Middle East, flying missions and also test flying prototype aircraft. While my dad spent the war years in the skies over Europe and Africa, my mother enlisted in the Women's Royal Air Force and was trained as an operator in communications. My mother was always a take-charge person, and true to form, she served as a corporal and supervised her section at stations throughout the United Kingdom. She would often be operating the communications lines while under aerial attack. Air raids and bombardments were the norm. She once spent 12 hours alone in a makeshift station in London, taking cover under the flimsy safety of a desk and coming up only to connect the lines between ground control and the airborne pilots. In true romantic fashion, my parents met during the war, when both of them were stationed at the same airbase in the seaside resort town of Oban in northern Scotland. It was Christmas Day, and the mess hall was especially crowded because, in keeping with one of the RAF's time-honored traditions, officers served the Christmas meal to the enlisted men and women. No one wanted to miss out on some friendly ribbing and a chance to be waited on by their superiors. My mum found herself seated at the same table as my dad. Her first words to him were a reprimand for not wearing proper uniform. Dad's explanation that he'd lost everything in the fire the night before provoked a bit of sympathy, and her ration of beer as an apology. It was the start of a love affair that lasted 65 years, and many more reprimands, apologies, and much, much laughter. After the war ended, my parents embarked on a new adventure and a new life together. In those days, the voyage across the ocean took weeks, and ship travel was elegant and romantic. They arrived in New York in the spring of 1950. It must have been an exciting time to be in such an electrifying and modern city, especially coming from the rubble of post-war England. And Mum and Dad were married in New York City. Eventually, my parents decided to make their home in Canada. They were eager to become citizens and start their own family. Dad found work as a technical illustrator with Avro on the CF100 and the ill-fated Avro Aero, before pursuing a career as a freelance illustrator until his retirement. My sister and I made up our little family of 4, and the adventures continued for many years. In their retirement, Mum and Dad moved to Prince Edward County in Ontario and filled their days truly living the good life.